DPT, a shot in the dark. And we have one of the authors with us right now, Barbara Lowe Fisher. We're also joined by the mother of a DPT victim, Janet Ciotoli. And we have Dr. Lewis Cooper as well from St. Luke's Hospital. We're going to come back and talk about this in just a moment. Stay with us. So we're talking about DPT, a shot in the dark, today with the author of that book, who incidentally, her oldest son was left with multiple learning disabilities after a reaction to his fourth DPT shot. This is in Virginia?
In Virginia, correct.
What exactly happened?
Well, I want to go into that, but first of all, I think we need to make clear we're talking about the diphtheria, pertussis, or whooping cough, and tetanus vaccines, 3 in 1, and it's the pertussis vaccine that is the one that is causing the problems. The other two can be given separately and are pretty innocuous. But my son, at 2.5, went into a state of unconsciousness within hours of the shot, and for about 6 hours. And this is a gifted child who knew his alphabet and his numbers by the age of 2, who was speaking in full sentences. And after that shot, he was terribly, terribly ill. He no longer knew the alphabet. He no longer knew his numbers. He suffered what they call mild encephalopathy, and he is multiply learning disabled today.
No chance for recovery?
Well, that brain damage is permanent, but we are trying to teach him ways to compensate for his learning disability.
Well, you must have been outraged.
I was, but I have to also tell you that my sister and her 2 children had whooping cough in Texas in 1981. My sister was fully vaccinated. So was her 4-year-old child. And her little 3-week-old was too young to be vaccinated and almost died from the disease. You see, my sister and her child gave the whooping cough to the baby. So this shot is not only highly reactive, it's not as effective as it should be.
It didn't keep them from getting whooping cough.
No.
Janet, you paid the ultimate price.
Yes,
You lost your 2-month-old son?
Yes, I did. Richie was not my first child to react severely to DPT. I have an older son who reacted severely, and at the time, we were told by the doctor that his reactions were normal: high-pitched screaming, high fever, vomiting, diarrhea. And when our second son received the shot and displayed the same symptoms, we as parents did not feel that this was anything abnormal. And then but then he started to display other symptoms, and by the time we had reached the doctor and explained the symptoms, he agreed it was due to the DPT shot, but do not worry. We asked to be seen at the emergency room. He said it wasn't necessary to meet us there. Even though we decided to go on our way there, our son died in my arms.
Doctor, why is it that some children are receptive to this and some aren't?
No one knows. But I think what's important is not to minimize the tragedy that you just heard about, but it has to be put in perspective. Before pertussis vaccine was available in New York City, 280 kids died in 1 year in this city in the last epidemic before vaccine.
When was that?
That was 1940. There's no question that we would like better pertussis vaccines, and there is a good deal of effort around the world to develop better vaccines. But in the meantime, we got to use the vaccines that we have.
But is there any way to know whether or not your child...
There isn't any way. All we do know is that there are 3.8 million children born in this country every year. And if we let up in our vaccine effort, then what did happen in the United Kingdom, in Great Britain, and in Japan could happen here. That is a resurgence of this disease, and many, many more children injured and many more children dying than what we have now in New York.
I have to disagree with you, Doctor, because in England in 1977, there were over 99,000 cases of whooping cough, 23 deaths, no cases of brain damage due to the disease. And we have 18,000 children, according to the CDC, every year suffering a convulsion or a collapse shock reaction after this shot. We don't know how many children are dying or being brain damaged because we don't have a reaction reporting system that will give us those figures. There's something very wrong here when we're mandating a vaccine and we don't even know how many children are being injured.
I'm glad you mentioned the CDC. The fact is, Regis, that we're all very concerned about the fortunate circumstance we have in the United States where polio, measles, and pertussis are under relative control. We're working very hard to improve the vaccines, but we know that if we let up before we have a better vaccine, that there'll be many, many more children who are injured and die. In the outbreak in the United Kingdom that Barbara described, of the roughly 100,000 cases, 5,000 kids were hospitalized. and roughly 1% of them died.
Wow.
The issue of convulsions that may be associated with this vaccine, yes, that occurs much more commonly than serious injury, which occurs about once in every 300,000 shots.
You can't say
But
that.
convulsions, well, this
But
is
you know
what
that's
careful...
a British study, doctor. You know it cannot be applied to this population.
Pause right here. We'll come right back and pick it up from this point in a moment. Because we're going to be pressed for time. We're back now. You've heard the arguments pro and con. As always, we are pressed for time on this show. I would like everybody to have a chance to say whatever it is at this point you want to say about this controversy.
We have had the capability to make a safer vaccine. The manufacturers have chosen not to for economic reasons. They want immunity from lawsuits. They don't want to lose the third world market because these vaccines cost pennies to produce. The pertussis vaccine does. And I believe that we will get one if Congress will pass a law that will keep them immune from lawsuits. But we can't do that because we will be protecting bad vaccines.
Janet?
I would like that parents start to become better consumers, try to become educated about the benefits and the risks of the vaccine. I do not want another parent to go through what I have gone through.
Shouldn't the doctors ask the parents about the family tree, the family history, before they administer the vaccine?
Yes, I do recommend that people read DPT, A Shot in the Dark, because it does help parents understand about the disease, whooping cough, and about the vaccine, and how to help assist pre-screening your child.
Shouldn't every doctor ask every family what the history is before they administer?
The American Academy of Pediatrics and the Center for Disease Control work very hard to see that doctors ask all the right questions. We are pushing hard for public education so that parents know the questions to ask. We obviously are pushing the doctors to ask all the right questions. In the meantime, we need more research. No one is holding back on better vaccines. One of our problems in vaccine testing in this country is that we've done such a good job of reducing the pertussis that we can't test for efficacy here because there aren't enough cases of pertussis to make the point. The vaccines are being tested in Sweden and in the United Kingdom right now. And as fast as we can bring better vaccines to the market, you can be sure everyone will want to. In the meantime, we can't let up, Regis.
I absolutely agree with Janet. We've got to screen out high-risk children. But we have the capability. It is not being done. And unless we continue to apply pressure to correct the situation and reform the vaccine system, we are going to be in this situation for all the other vaccines they have planned for us.
Meanwhile, if your child is to be vaccinated here in New York City, you might want to get this book and get some background on what's going to happen when he or she does receive these shots. We thank you all very, very much for being with us.